Welcome to Navarrero's online showcase video, M.I.A. edition. Today we are back at the iron ore mine again, and this is of course to continue our operations down here, or up here depending on your perspective. Down from the gold mine, up from most of everything else. And yeah, last time we brought the supplies over. Today we are going to take the empty stake cars and bring them back up to the gold mine again. I'm not entirely sure if we can do more than that. I would like to also take care of the loaded hoppers here, but that might need another episode because quite a few things changed in this area between episodes, and I also would like to talk about those. So yeah, let's start with anything that I built here. And when it comes to the truss bridges right here, I'll be talking about them in a bit, but for now ignore them please, it's just they are temporary. I just wanted to try out some building stuff, and that's why those need to be here. When it comes to the new engine shed and the track for the hoppers, this is basically my attempt at giving some of those special use case engines a proper home now, which I talked about in the last episode. It's just that a lot of the more specific things here, the engines that I buy for one purpose only, they provide some of the most fun in this playthrough for me because the operations are really interesting and everything, but I haven't really been treating them that well for the longest time. They just stood around on some track, exposed to the elements day in, day out, and it was time to put a stop to that. So while I still have a few engines to go, this is my solution for, yeah, my 4 climaxes for the iron ore transport. So all of them thankfully fit into one single shed right here. It's, I mean, it has a bit of margin for error, but not really too much. But I can still at least close the doors, and I'm pretty happy with what we have here. So it's quite cozy. Will likely also get pretty warm in here with all of the engines running if you resupply them to get them started again. And speaking about getting started, that's another big factor for my decision making. While I don't mind putting in a bit more effort getting this stuff going, I would also really like to not spend like half an hour to get the train reassembled whenever I need it. And I'm glad that these operations don't require anything like that amount of setup. All I need to do is come in here, open up this side of the shed, fire up all of the engines, get these two out. They should still be connected even though for some reason the link isn't showing, but yeah, they are stuck together. I get both of them out, put them in front of all of these hoppers, so just running them past the switch here, coming back, connecting them to this hopper right here, then pulling the entire train along until everything is past the switch, and at that point I just need to come back here, get the other 2 engines, put them up to the back, and we are good to go again. Of course, putting everything back into the shed and onto the right siding, that's just running everything in reverse. So first up, disconnecting these engines, putting them in here, putting all of the hoppers onto this track, and then the last 2 engines back onto the left side. Pretty easy, should be done rather quickly, and I'm really happy with how that's going to work out. The one thing I'm not too happy with is the end of this track right here. I needed a bit more space than I first expected, and that means that it's now kinda going off a cliff. I think that looks a bit goofy with how much work it would be to establish this groundwork here. And also the stopper really needs to do its duty, otherwise I'll be losing a few hoppers to the to the valley. The valley of the beast you might wanna call it there, if it starts swallowing up my rolling stock. So I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna be moving the hoppers across or just along the track, and just trying to wrap the track around the back of the building a bit. I hope I have enough space here so that I don't need something like that anymore. But for the time being, it's doing its job and I'm pretty happy with it. So that's all that's regarding the new stuff here, apart from the new rolling stock itself. You already noticed that a few of these hoppers are not loaded, and actually these are new hoppers. So what happened here, and I'll need to give you guys a rundown on my operations both in the last episode but especially what I did between the episodes, is that I figured out something. But let's talk about what I did in between episodes first, and then I'll get to my conclusion and why I now have more hoppers than before. So last episode we took supplies from the sawmill to the gold mine, switched off the road engine for 2 climaxes which are on the end of that train there, and brought everything down here to deliver the supplies to the iron ore mine, and that was pretty much all that we did last episode. But I already mentioned back then that in order to get everything up and running for the iron ore delivery, I would need to do a bit more work, and that has to do with the gondolas up here. The iron ore hoppers down there, they are not meant to deliver the ore to the actual smelter, they only bring it up here, and then it's loaded over into the gondolas. And the gondolas actually have about twice the capacity as the hoppers down there. So that's something that I need to take care of. It simply meant doing the operations down here twice in order to fill up the entire train. So in between episodes I brought the iron ore that I produced last time up here, unloaded it, brought the empty cars up here again, drove everything back over to the sawmill and got more supplies, and yeah, after delivering the supplies and loading up the iron ore that I produced here on the second bunch, this is what we got here now. So I basically did the job that I did last episode, what I'm going to do today, and also largely what I'll be taking care of next episode. I did that all in between episodes as well, just so that once we get all the hoppers loaded up and bring them up to the gold mine next time, then we can also just get the train going and do the final delivery to the smelter without needing to do anything further. So yeah, that's why I did that, and now to the reason why the train is suddenly longer. Doing those operations, I suddenly noticed that I didn't need all my climaxes. 4 climaxes for the train here up the 6.5% was pretty much what I landed on due to some trial and error back when I built it earlier this year. And that was on a version of this game that ran quite a bit more poorly. I'm not entirely sure if it was just the game's performance or if something with physics or how some cars or engines behave changed. But back then I needed 4 climaxes for 12 cars, and now it seems like I can do much more with the same climaxes, or I could just cut the 4th engine here and do the same operations with only 3 of them. The thing is, 3 climaxes for this job would be a bit awkward. Like, do you put the 3rd one on the front? So it would be 2 on one side, 1 on the other. Do you put one of them in the middle, or how is that supposed to work? How is the train supposed to look afterwards? So I decided to stick with 4 of them. But that means that, well, if I keep 12 hoppers, I would basically be running one of the engines without any purpose, because it would just be a spare at that point. So I decided to just up the amount of cars that I'm using here. I still need the same amount of climaxes. I actually still have to test this out. This is just from the math that somebody did for me. They still got the old, what's it called again? The train calculator, where you can put in a grade, put in the cars and engines, and you see if it actually works out. And according to them, I could actually use 1 climax for 5 cars, and that means, yeah, I could go up to 20, 18, close enough, and 18 also working out with my input and output ratio for the mine. So yeah, that's another little thing. I increased the length of this train by 50%. Sorry. So from 12, 50% is 6, and those are the things that we see here. So now it's a grand total of 18. But in order to then get all the supplies, in order to even fill up all the hoppers, I would need 50% more of that as well. So now this train is also longer by 50%, bringing it up from 16 cars to 24. And that should all be working out. Right now, I don't know if I even want to keep it that way, because honestly, I don't mind having more hoppers, but the amount of cars right here, that's a bit more than I was bargaining for. So maybe I'll put everything back onto the main yard. But if I need to do the supply run here, I would still cut it down to only 16 cars and keep it at that. I don't know, this train right now is too long for the sidings, and it's just, I don't know. It's a bit much for me. I think I'm happier with just cutting it down a little bit. Also, if I go for 22 car or 24 cars, that's going to be 12 cars per good, and that means that I'll be running more supplies than the input can handle, and that can be a bit of a problem. So, yeah, another good reason on why to cut down on that a little bit. Also, initially I kind of wanted to use Heislers here instead of climaxes. It just turned out that back then I definitely needed the climaxes in order to do the operations at all. So I wouldn't be against switching these ones out. Would still be the same number and the same name, and I would likely just delete these and buy myself uh, a few Heislers instead. I don't want to do everything with the same engines all the time, but with how it turned out back then, there wasn't really much of another option, but now there seems to be. It still has me a bit wary of the option of them maybe changing back whatever they did and then everything is falling apart again, but I don't know. What can you do? So yeah, that's pretty much the entire situation over here right now. And let's get going, bring the engines up to, fire them back up and bring them up to the gold mine. Although, never mind, I almost forgot something. We can still fire them up right now, and then I'll talk about the truss bridges real quick. But just so that they are already warm and at full pressure, I'll quickly give them a bit of firewood. So that can heat up while we are talking about something else over here. And this is the truss bridge stuff. The thing is, right now with the truss bridge model, if you want to have a longer truss bridge, the easiest way of doing this would be by putting one of them behind the other, just snapping them together. And I mean, it's not structurally sound in the slightest, doesn't matter in the game, but I think it just completely looks awful, because you know this would be a weak point. So one option would be to put a pillar of some sort in between them. So at every stepping point there would be a few meters of some other bridge in order to support this thing. Makes it look much better, but it's also kinda a bit tedious with how short the bridges are. So my idea was to try and overlap them. First attempt is right here, and this is at an interval of 11.5 meters. Basically, I put down this part at the beginning of the bridge and then went ahead and put down another few spline pieces with 11.5 meters in length, and then at every single ending point I snapped the bridge to it. So this is overlapping the entire thing in a way that the endings are kind of covering each other up, making it look more structurally sound, but I also noticed that the gap in here is also a bit weird. And in the end, it didn't really look the part that I wanted to exactly. Also, with stuff like this, when overlapping things, you always get Z fighting, or at least most of the time, which is of course two textures being in the exact same place and the game not knowing which one should be on top, so it's constantly switching between either one of them. And it just has this weird twitchy effect that just... it isn't fun. I also noticed that some of the parts, even if you don't do any overlapping, they still can have some Z fighting, so this is from a single strat bridge over here. I can show you on this end as well. Just so that you know that this doesn't have anything to do with me having put this stuff together, but it's just something weird with the model and textures. But yeah, this thing, while I think it's still very much a step up from this one over here, not perfect, so I went ahead and tried an 11-meter interval. And this is how I got this entire thing. Still a lot of issues with tile spacing and Z fighting, but this is something that I would actually consider building if I need it somewhere. Of course, it's not going to be built in here because, there's no reason for it to be here. What is it even supposed to connect? But if I have another space where I need this kind of thing, I would definitely consider revisiting this. Afterwards, however, I decided to put this onto the official Railroads Online Reddit page as a suggestion that maybe we could get a different type of bridge which would work better with overlapping. So the idea here is that it would basically be a copy of the existing one, but the trackbed is going to be cut back to the last vertical pillar on both sides, making it 2 segments shorter, and also then allowing to just, well, if you snap them together at this part and this part over here, these two parts of the span would be overlapping, and you would basically end up with this entire thing. But since they're not overlapping the rail bed, it's just gonna be looking more how it should. Still potentially the same issues going on with inside part of the track here. I don't know what that's really for. So I don't know, would be a bit weird, but it would definitely be quite the step up from what we have right now. Also, you could, of course, instead just turn this entire thing into several modules, like having one module for the end part and then just a few for the truss structures in between. That should also work out perfectly fine and would be another option to create this. I got a response from one of the developers on that whole thread, and they told me that this would not be working because, well, in real life, after a certain length, you would need an arch bridge in order to make the trusses work. Right now, with how this is set up, these parts would be pulling down on the top beams, and that could at some point fail if everything gets too long and too heavy. There are a lot of things to consider when doing the weight calculations, and an arched bridge is usually better because that doesn't allow things to bend, but instead uses compression, and a lot of materials are better in that sense. I then told them that, yeah, I get that this wouldn't be completely structurally sound after a certain length, but in the end it would still be looking more like it could be holding something than something like this over here. So I wasn't really giving up on the idea, and I went over to talking about it more from a gameplay sense of things. After all, if somebody IRL needs a train or just a rail bridge across something, they can get somebody to then just design the whole thing for their purposes, and we of course do not have the same options here. So yeah, we need to work with what the game provides, and even if it wouldn't be a completely realistic model, I think it would still be better if we had something that's a bit more flexible for what we need here. But yeah, enough about all of that. I just wanted to quickly mention that, and yeah, show you guys my bridge concepts. With how the game is going right now, it was pretty much out of question that we would ever add these anyways, but I wanted to try it just to see the kind of answer I would get. And yeah, I still have a brake pulled here, that's why the entire thing didn't move. So now we can just run the train and bring the cars back up to the top here. To also get a bit more progress on this entire thing. But yeah, when it comes to the bridges, let me know what you guys think. I mean, I get that they want to put in stuff that has been used in real life, but in the end, I think they are also just restricting themselves to what they can put in here. And I mean, even if arched truss bridge was to be added, it would be nice. It would be pretty useful. It would be a bit longer, but yeah, that still means that we now have two items that work for two different cases, and really not something that's flexible enough for us to deal with a lot of things. You know what, I should probably stay on this end for now. When going up the switchback, I want to stay on the front engine so that I can turn that off at a certain point. So right now, in order to not run back and forth all the time, I'm gonna just stay here and actually take a look at the map to figure out when everything is past the switch. Should be about there, so just giving it a bit more time because I think the symbols are pretty much in the center of the vehicle, so in the center of the engine or the car, so I don't want to derail anything by pulling the lever too soon. But yeah, we are very much past the switch over there now. Okay, let's put this in reverse. Should also help with slowing the thing down. And let's run to the other engine because we need both of them in order to pull this thing up. I think it's now also a tiny bit too heavy for two climaxes. I think they start stalling out, but it's not really too much of an issue. So it's going to work out, it's just gonna be a bit tight. Yeah, climaxes right now with full reverser, they are pretty much at 9 miles per hour top speed. I got the top speed before they added the new UI. It was much easier getting that when we could still just read the value. I like the speed meter right here, where it's an analog design, but it doesn't always feel like it's hitting the exact same point where it should. This right now feels more like 8 miles per hour, and maybe we are already stalling out. I don't know if we are even fully on the grade yet. But it's definitely going to wander down in a moment, ever so slightly. So I think we are just maybe 1 or 2 cars above what it should be able to do. Okay, now it's going down. You can clearly hear it. Also, fun thing, and I don't really mean fun in the actual sense. I'm pretty sure that this used to work quite a bit better. So with my testing, I also tried to make sure that it could bring all the cars up. And while I noticed that it was stalling out, this seems to be happening pretty soon now, so a bit inconsistent. I'm trying to figure out if I have any brakes pulled here, but I hope I don't. I mean, at this point I hope I do, because this is not really going the way I want it to. We need to go a bit further before we completely stall out. Maybe it's been the difference that I started the front engine a bit too late, and that just didn't give me the full momentum that I need here. But here all the brakes are open. everything is fully pulled, but we are now making our way back down very slowly, so this is not how I planned to do it. Okay, second attempt. I'll be pulling the brake a bit in the hopes that I don't tear the entire train apart. But this is another reason to at least get rid of some of the cars. But I think if I remove at this point 1/3 of the cars, then I should also be able to go down to the climax, the highest last for the engines. I'm sorry, it's way too hot today. I shouldn't be recording at all, but I wanted to make this video for a few days now. And if I don't make it, there's going to be another few things to talk about, and then it's just going to get more and more complicated. Okay, let's just let it roll for a bit. Gotta make sure that I don't run into the stopper there, because I think at that point some cars will get lost. But we are right now pretty much in an experimental phase with our operations here. Okay, full steam ahead. And I'm also gonna go to the other end right now and get that engine going again. I hope we are now able to do this thing. I mean, they definitely sound like they are doing it at full speed, so this should be alright. But it still looks more like 8 miles per hour than 10. Or 9, I mean. And that's also a reason why I'm not too concerned about continuing with top speed testing. Because at this point, unless I always just assume that it's gonna be close to the next, to the existing speed brackets, if I really want to do proper testing and not just put them into the pre-existing categories, then I would need to do the testing differently, and at this point, my interest in the game isn't that much anymore. I'm still going to be playing it for a while, I guess, but I don't really care enough to put myself through that kind of work. Now we are still stalling out pretty much the same way as last time, I think. I've definitely done this trip before and it worked out completely fine. So I don't know what's the difference now. I checked all the brakes, I have all the engines at full power, but it's just not doing it anymore. This is so weird. Reverser full, regulator full, but I mean I can close the hand valve, but I don't think that's gonna do anything. So yeah, I don't know. This is really not what I've foreseen for this episode. So I might need to go back to the drawing board. But yeah, I can only assure you guys that I've done the testing before. I tried bringing this up. I tried seeing how much longer the runoffs need to be for the switchbacks now, and it's just not working anymore. It's really, really weird. But then again, you know, it only worked out like just by a few inches the last time. And not just by a few inches, it made it up there pretty confidently. but it was definitely slowing down, so I don't know what to tell you guys. The only thing I can tell you now that apparently I derailed a few cars, as per usual, and yeah, while I would like to do the operations now, I think we need to stop it here and come back another time. Because this is definitely not working. So yeah, if you guys have any idea on how this could have come to be like this, let me know. Otherwise, I guess I'm gonna be doing a bit of respecking in between episodes, and will maybe just get another climax to help out here for the time being. But yeah, that's gonna be it for this episode. Thanks for watching, and see you guys next time. I'm sorry, I was hoping this would turn out differently, but what can you do? Till next time, bye bye.